I've been sitting around in the office all day, just getting work done, getting a lot of things done. And today's just one of those days, another rainy day in New York. And I said, you know what? Was putting together some data points here. Lots of data that I'm crunching. Lots of information that I'm looking at, and it hit me this morning. It hit me this morning, and I've been mulling it over all day. And I said to myself, you know what? I just got to go live with this. And here I am. It's about 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the East Coast. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm just got to go out there and say it. Guys, when I was putting together these pieces of data bit by bit, making a few phone calls, and getting from key individuals information that I was allowed to see, missing or these bits of information is basically what I was allowed. And I took the bits of information, and soon enough, folks, it's like, when you're playing Wheel of Fortune. Can I buy a vowel? Can I buy another vowel? Is there a letter B? Is there an H? Is there a D? And then at some point, you'd like to say to yourself, all right, Jack, I'm going to solve the puzzle. And you blurt out the word or the phrase, and boom, Wheel of Fortune. It's what happened to me today. So here I am, like a detective. When I'm doing work, whether it's crunching data points for crypto markets or I'm crunching data points for the stock market, I'm looking at trends 24 hours, 48 hours, 24 days, 48 months in advance. You kind of take a step back. Folks, let me explain something to you what the hell I'm talking about. I'm going to keep it brief here. And I'm still processing this. I'm still going through it. But here's the gist of what I'm saying. Joseph Robinette Biden is 1,000% compromised. And I'm not talking about the type of compromise where, hey, you know what? Here's a backroom deal. I'm going to let you open up such and such a business, or I'm going to funnel such and such a market in your direction, and you're going to give me a little bit of kickback. That's old school. That's old school. And you know what? In my own naivete, I thought that's what we were dealing with. I thought that we were dealing with the type of naivete that we're familiar with, where, we'll cut some deals here and there with another. No, that's not what's happening. And I'm not going to sit on the soapbox and say that, the Chinese are absolute enemy. The CCPs are absolute enemy. They need to be destroyed. They took advantage of a situation. They ran with it, just like anybody would. We do the damn same thing. This is the Game of Thrones. There's no black and white. There's lots of gray. But here's what's terrifying. Joe Biden is not even compromised. He's beyond that. And the data points that I've looked at and putting the piece of the puzzle together and asking some of the right questions, and I've come to my own conclusion. This guy is not just a corrupt politician where, he's going to do some back-end deals, get some, some kickbacks on the backside. No. This guy is a complete, bought out, sold out, and paid for asset of the Chinese Communist Party. He is a Manchurian candidate. He is bought and paid for. He is their asset. Do you understand? They're trying to put their man on the throne. They are trying to put their man on the throne. This guy is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Many of it is in offshore accounts. He owns islands. In fact, hell, he even owns an island that's a stone throws away from Jeffrey Epstein's Little St. James. He owns 4 lavish mansions that we know of in the United States. Any other things that he could be holding through trust companies and nonprofits and whatnot, God only knows. But here's the thing. Anybody that's worked with me, and if you come up to me and say, hey, V, you know what, I want to open up a gold account with you. I want you to set me up with gold. And I'm not like one of these little small outfits here that you got running around. No. We do some serious stuff. And especially when we're talking about offshoring and we're talking about having your wealth protected. One of the key questions that is asked of every client of mine when they are going to vault or they want to have their own allocated, segregated account is, are you a politically exposed person? That's part of KYC AML. Are you a politically exposed person, or are you related to a politically exposed person? That is bank regulation. And if you are a politically exposed person, meaning your dad happens to be the president, or the vice president of the United States, or your dad happens to be a senator of a state in the United States, you cannot do business in a foreign country. You cannot open up an account offshore. You cannot be involved in banking, period, offshore, because you are politically exposed. U.S. regulators and lawmakers have made that a dictum because in order to prevent foreign compromise. And I know the bloody FBI, which is a joke, it needs to be destroyed. It needs to be done away with, reformatted, and the entire leadership and mid-level management of the FBI needs to be blown out completely. They need to go. But you know what? This type of action that was done by the Bidens falls under FinCEN of the Treasury Department. And no matter what offshore account they hid it in, no matter what trust they've put it in, I guarantee you the SWIFT system has every single record. Folks, we have the wires, we have the receipts. This guy is a complete sheep-dipped CCP plant. There are idiots right now and people that just don't know any better that are going to vote for a guy who is in the back pocket of the CCP. It's incredible. Folks, you got to understand a little history lesson here. When the CCP was forming during the Communist Revolution, a lot of the intellectual luminaries of the revolution, just like every other communist revolution, you know, Stalin has done this where he gets power. What does he do? He whacks the enlightened ones that helped formulate the doctrine that got the working schleps to take up arms alongside the communists, the Bolsheviks. And what happened? Well, Stalin executes Tolstoy and all these other guys, and Trotsky and all these other guys, right? Killed them all, right? Same thing with Mao. Mao worked very closely with the triads, the famous Chinese organized crime organization. Mao worked very closely with the triads, and that triad culture has been part of the inner sanctum of the Chinese Communist Party. There is that side to them. That's their deep state. Very connected to their deep state. And so when Mao was coming to power, there was one of Mao's trigger men, one of Mao's button man, one of Mao's hitmen, his zips, who was part of the Long March. One of Mao's right-hand man who put a lot of bodies in the ground for Mao was Xi Jinping's dad, his father. And a lot of the firstborn that came out of those individuals, those leaderships, that leadership that was part of that Long March, they became the princes, the provincial leaders, the party magnates. And they saw, in time, as China grew in power, grew in influence, grew in wealth, they saw the budding weakness, the greed, the gluttonous, the corruption, the decadence of American politicians. And then the Chinese CCP, working very closely with their comrades, with the British deep state, particularly the City of London Corporation. They began the payoffs. They began the setting up the bank accounts in Jersey, not New Jersey, but the island of Jersey, the island of Gibraltar, the Cayman Islands, the British Virgin Islands. Offshore accounts. And this is how we knew that many members of the CCP had over 4 to 10 trillion parked offshore. We know that north of 120 trillion in wealth that we know of. It's probably more. It's probably like 240, maybe even 300 trillion total. But 120 trillion that we know of in wealth is managed by the City of London Corporation. So the Chinese Communist Party, because it was decided by the elites that China was going to rise and America was going to die. And I'll tell you right now, many U.S. politicians have been compromised. They have been bought and paid for. And it doesn't stop there, folks. There are close to 6.8 billion that we know of. Even more, upwards estimate is close to 13, maybe even $15 billion that have flowed into American institutions the last several years, specifically the educational arm. Do you wonder why our kids are taught utter bullshit? Do you wonder why the biggest argument right now is about what gender they are? Do you wonder why there's drag queen story hour in public libraries? Do you wonder why gender studies and racial sensitivity training and Harvard holding workshops called What in the Butt? Where does all this money come from for these stupid, idiotic programs and educational programs that literally demoralize, weakens a nation, and stops the critical thinking and intellect of the future progeny? Where does this money come from? You do some digging, you'd find out that it's coming directly from the CCP. And who underlies? And granted, there's a limit. You could only grant $250,000 per organization. But there's so many ways to get around it creatively and with the right kind of accounting to get around that. that's very easy to subvert because it's very loosely enforced. And now you have a generation of the participation trophy winners. You have a generation of idiots who are terrible in mathematics and sciences and statistics, who are terrible in real hard academics, but they excel in bullshit. They excel in pop culture. They excel in things that don't matter. Where did that money come from? It came right out of China. I got all the tickets. Seen all the receipts. This is incredible. The money that flew out when Obama put $150 billion back to the Iranians, some of that money was kicked back to the Chinese. Some of that was kicked back to far leftist communist idiots that are in positions of leadership within institutions of the European Union. As well, it was also kicked back to American assets that are part of this globalist organization. I like to call them American ass hats because these are ass hats. These people are dirtbags. They literally have sold, guys like Joe Biden have sold out their country for money. Do you understand how terrifying this is? Why do you think they wanted carbon taxes and the Green New Deal? It is to eliminate competition. And folks, I was talking to a couple of guys. Let me explain something to you. If Hillary, take this for what it's worth. I don't care if you believe me or not. I don't give a rat's rear end. But when I was talking to one of my guys, and this was corroborated by a few other guys who are in Intel, and I'm not like CNN who tells you I got sources, I ain't got no sources. If Hillary would have won, a major city, the game plan was, and I'm not going to say the name of the city, but a major city in the United States was supposed to go up in a mushroom cloud. A year after that, the pandemic was to be launched. And we're all supposed to crumble and fall into a global dictatorship. That's what was supposed to happen. And the Green New Deal was to come into play. And who created the Green New Deal? Oh, it happens to be the City of London Corporation. Wow. It's incredible. The Green New Deal is designed to deindustrialize the West and return China to the prominence of the Middle Kingdom, the central node on which the global economy flows through. Which at this point, looking at all the data points, I'm disgusted. I'm not like angry at them and view them as an enemy. No, this is the Game of Thrones. There's a lot of gray areas. We were idiots to allow this to happen. Our politicians are scumbags. A lot of them need to be lined up against a wall and executed. Your children's future, your children's birthright, the future of this country has been compromised by individuals. And in the next few days, folks, you're going to see more and more and more of this detail come out. And this will not be prosecuted. And from what I am hearing, this will not be prosecuted at a civilian level. This will not go through the courts because they have all been compromised. They are completely inept. We've been involved in a soft war forever against, it's basically those who are patriots, who love this country, against a globalist cabal. And that is what's happening. Joe Biden, and the truth is going to come out, folks. It's going to come out in the next few days, right before the election. You're going to see the more truth hit the wall than you've ever seen before. Joe Biden is not somebody who just was taking bribes to get little shady deals done. This is not like your local mayor who gets a little bit of kickback from his buddy in the construction company because he paved over a parking lot. This is a guy who is going to follow the very dictates of Beijing. This is a guy who has been sold out. His job, his mission is to bring America to subservience. This is why they couldn't have Bernie Sanders in there. Biden is their guy. Biden's the guy they pump billions of dollars into. Biden is the guy. Joseph Manchurian Biden. He's the one. This is not about compromise. This is not about Hunter Biden and his cocaine habits and his sexual deviancy and his degeneracy. This is about a puppet whom they will have, whom they're trying to have sit in the most powerful office in the world. This is what's happening. This is what's going on. It's incredible. Unbelievable. I'll share with you guys as more of this data becomes available and I'm able to share with it. But the bits and pieces that I've seen, that I've talked to some of my guys on the back end, this guy is, I can't believe, how do you sell out your own country for money, man? Like, how do you do that, bro? It's unconscionable. It's unconscionable to me. How do you go to sleep at night? It's disgusting. They don't care because they think that they have a seat at the table. They think that they will not be touched. They're about to get touched. They're about to be touched. We have a lot of work to do, folks. I'm telling you right now. Next, I expect a lot of chaos, and this chaos is going to be globally. I know you've all heard about the beheadings in France. I don't know what the hell the French are doing. They've had a long-time Islamist problem with fundamentalist whack jobs. They need to get rid of these migrants, period. They got to go. They're incompatible with Western civilizations, completely incompatible. They do not assimilate. They need to go. But over here at home, I mean, you've heard about the van they found filled with explosives, propane and dynamite sticks. How many more of these vans are driving around? And granted, they're rude and crudely put together, but who's paying for all this? Where do the logistics come from? It's not just Soros, folks. It's not just Soros. The Republic, patriots, us Americans, we are in the fight for our lives. We're in the fight for the future of our country. For that is what is at stake. Joe Biden is a Chinese asset. Joe Biden is an intelligence asset. You remember what happened to Tucker Carlson last night? He shipped a package via FedEx, certified, insured, guaranteed overnight delivery. When you select that option, which is the most expensive option you could do for FedEx, not only does it have a tracking number, it has a chain of custody to it. Somewhere along the chain of custody, the package was tampered with and the documents were stolen. And the company ran a massive investigation trying to find out how, and they can't even figure this out. This is where we've come to. This is where we've come to, folks. Social media must go there in the back pocket of the Chinese. We need to do audits on Harvard, Yale, MIT, Princeton. The list goes on and on and on and on. There's a lot of foreign money. And these guys are smart. They won't come in as, oh, this is a Chinese company. No. It will be a front company, a shell company that's probably incorporated in Jersey, not New Jersey, but the island of Jersey, Gibraltar, British Virgin Islands, Cayman, whatever. They'll own a subsidiary in, let's just say, Maryland or whatnot, or in Massachusetts or in Delaware, the state of de jure. And then, utilizing that, they're bringing it back into, oh, look, it's a $250,000 gift from such and such a company, to Harvard. Oh, that's great. No, there is a crap load of foreign money, folks. It is time for America to have an audit done. It is time to audit the universities. It is time to audit the media companies. It is time to audit Hollywood. They've been in Hollywood. They have penetrated every level. They've penetrated the World Health Organization. They've penetrated the CDC. They've penetrated higher learning and higher education. They've penetrated the media companies. They've penetrated Hollywood. They've penetrated the banking institutions. It's time we audit the Fed as well. It's incredible. It's incredible. Folks, election day is coming. I don't care if you're in a red state or a blue state. I don't care if you think that, you know what, my state is completely red, I'm just going to stay home and chill. Or, oh, my state is completely blue, I'm just going to stay home and chill. Get your ass out there and vote. Because at this point, it's about sending a message. And once we get this country back, we need to work more, whatever we need to do, we need to win back the culture. You know, when I was growing up in the early 80s and late 80s and 90s and 80s and 90s, American history. I was thinking, it was mandatory. American history classes, we had PIG classes, participation in government, so on and so forth. There were so many things to take. We need to revamp education. We need to win back the culture. We can't have a whole bunch of dumbass kids hating America. They don't even know why. They don't even know. Because the indigenous people were here, and that's why, because the indigenous people. Right, the indigenous people, sure. Okay. All bullshit. All bullshit. It's got to go. This is what you're facing, folks. This is what you're facing. Are we heading for another economic collapse? Or how bad the violence is going to get? It's going to get crazy. It's going to get crazy. But it's not going to be... It's going to be gut-wrenching. Some areas more than others. If you're in Chicago, you're in for it. If you're in LA, you're in for it. If you're in many cities in California, you're in for it. Some parts of New York City, you're in for it. If you're in any kind of Democratic stronghold, you're most likely in for it. I mean, you talk to these dumbass rioters, they don't even know why they're rioting. They have no freaking clue. No clue whatsoever. But don't worry. Let not your heart be troubled. we will prevail. And when the dust settles, you will see that flag still waving. And America will be here. And we'll get this country back on track. And we'll re-enter the global economy with a vengeance. This is the Gorilla, and I'm out.